Hello, you are listening to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we share the secrets of franchisee support that are unlocking hidden profitability in progressive brands across North America. And I'm super excited today because I brought back my good friend Rob Flanagan. Because,
Yay!
right? Because Rob and your team and Houndstown USA are a progressive brand. And this is the thing is I had to bring you back, Rob, because well, anytime you and I have conversations, I get to hear awesome insights about how you're doing things, and I love your insights and your perspective. And you are definitely doing things in a more progressive way. I get to see under the hood of a lot of different brands, and not only in the clients we work with, but when we hear things at roundtables. And I'm always impressed by what you're doing. So welcome back, Rob.
It is an absolute pleasure. I saw the email come through to come back again, and I've had it on my calendar, and this is the highlight of my week. Even before going to IFA, this is my highlight. So
Ooh.
I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Okay, well, that's good. And I'm glad we got over, we had some technical glitches. Rob, from now on, I'm bringing someone in advance because it's the second time you've been here. And I think both times I
It's my
started.
fault.
Yeah, I'm going to blame you because otherwise it's fine. But all kidding aside, yeah, super excited to have you back, Rob. And today we're going to be talking about the theme is measuring what matters and talking dashboards and scorecards. Here's the actual title, though, I came up with. How do you like this? From dashboard to action, a CEO perspective.
I like that. It's very apropos.
Okay, because the thing is, and we'll be talking about dashboards are great. It's great to have scorecards, dashboards, know your numbers, all this stuff. But if franchisees are not taking action on them and using them, then it's sort of irrelevant. And what we really want at the end of the day is we want to see franchisees making business decisions based on their numbers. So we're going to get into that. Let's get into first a little bit of your background, just in case anybody missed the awesome episode, number 10, by the way, everybody, if you missed it. It came out in October, but Rob was with us then. But Rob has a really cool background with various different stages of brand. So Rob, give us a couple of the highlights.
Yeah, highlights is I was in grad school to be a therapist, and was partnered with a founder of a brand that ended up franchising.
Mm-hmm.
And when I graduated with my therapy degree, I was like, I don't want to listen to people's problems all day long. So I got into franchising where I listened to people's problems all day long. But with that brand, as we started to franchise, everything kind of really clicked. And so I've been in franchising over 20 years now. And a lot of the approach that myself, my team, everybody kind of brings to is kind of layering in a bit of the psychological component of what a franchisee is navigating, especially for a franchisee who is new to business ownership and franchising.
Yeah, that is such an awesome background to have in franchising. I know we talked about this before, but to understand what people are feeling and why they're not doing what they need to do and all that, and starting there, because and this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because I see so many people, even established, seasoned franchisors, forget sometimes, even seasoned leadership team members, can forget that on the other side of the call or the franchise relationship is a human, and there's some reason why they're resisting or struggling or whatever it is, and we see this all the time. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, just maybe maybe that should be a requirement. You're going to be on,
Maybe.
like,
But
if you work on a franchisor team, you got to go get your psychology degree.
yeah, but I think it ties to the purpose of the podcast today.
Mm-hmm.
Is even when you get into the dashboards and the numbers and the data, if there is resistance, it's always kind of asking that question, why? And sometimes it could be on the franchisor side where maybe you're not training to it as well as you could be. Maybe you're not explaining the why behind the number, those sort of thing. But sometimes there could be a resistance specifically from the franchisee, and that can run the gamut of what those could be. And so how do you kind of hire and train your field reps to be able to identify those type of situations and then lean into that conversation and really kind of tie it all together with the numbers?
Mm-hmm. This brings up another reason why I thought that I've got to have you on the podcast for this topic, because as we talk at our leadership roundtables, I say often, hey, you guys sitting here are the CEOs and the C-suite, and you're seasoned and you know what you're saying, but how are you relaying that to your field teams or FBCs? Because it's great that you know this, but are you actually helping them? Because they're the ones doing it. And we sometimes talk, I find that at conferences, sometimes people on panels, the way they're talking, leadership, they talk like they're the ones doing it. We know they're not. It's the front line team members.
Correct.
Right. And I knew that you have invested in development for your FBCs. You really believe in the coaching mindset and mentality and approach. So, we'll get into that a little bit more, and I know your EOS also internally, you guys run off EOS, right? So that has scorecards and metrics written all over it, right? Through and through.
Very data focused.
Yes. And so, okay, so let's start with dashboards. I'm using the word dashboard. I don't want people to worry whether we're talking scorecard dashboard. You might have an external dashboard, or not external, but a franchisee-facing dashboard that everybody sees. You might have it more selective, but then you might have a specific scorecard for franchisees. So I'm just saying you as in the people listening. So don't get hung up on that. We're really going to just get down to using the numbers. So let's hear a little bit about what your dashboard or scorecard system looks like at Houndstown so people have a little bit of context.
Yeah, so we start really with the dashboard and the data conversation in franchise recruitment.
Awesome.
So before they're signing, we talk about why we use data. And I actually do this in this, we call it confirmation day, but I call it the black hole analogy. And what that is, almost 100 years ago at this point, we didn't know about black holes, but we saw the effect of black holes on surrounding star systems. And that gave us kind of a clue about where to go look. And that's how we look at our dashboards. They're not always going to give you 100% of the answer, but like the dashboard on your car, if it's a red light or a green light, it tells you, oh, I got to go look at something and kind of really dig into it and understand what's happening in the business. And then what we layer underneath that with franchisees, so recruitment, and then before they open through training and everything, is that without data, it can become an argument of opinions. And we know in today's environment, there's a lot of opinions and a lot of arguing about that. But when you kind of bring data into the conversation, it takes the emotion out of it. And so a very generic example, but many of your listeners will relate to it, is maybe there's a franchisee and they think marketing is the problem. And maybe the franchisor thinks it's more operational. Maybe it's customer service or leading your team or something like that. And the franchisor's getting louder and louder, and the franchisee's getting louder and louder, and it's just not going to go anywhere. But if you can look at the data, and maybe in this example, you see, wait, your lead flow is above what the benchmark is for your cohort, but you're not converting those leads into a lifelong customer. So now we see that data point. We know that's where the problem is. Now let's go create a plan to support around that, wherever that may be, and vice versa. Maybe it is a marketing thing, and we're looking at data that shows their customer service is great through a Net Promoter Score. We're taking a look at their turnover rate in terms of their team. It's like, no, their operations are really strong. It is a marketing thing. Let's go focus there. So by using that type of context and that methodology, we can be more efficient in finding the problem. And we can also navigate the relationship with the franchisee in more of a partnership dynamic versus, oh, we know all the answers, go do what we say dynamic, which doesn't ideally work.
Yeah, that's such a great example of being able to pinpoint what's actually true by using data. I'm sure, yeah, everybody's been there when the franchisee says it's a marketing problem. Now you have a way to check if it actually is, and I'm sure it's when it is actually that it's a relief to the franchisee, but at least you know where to look. So,
Yeah.
but okay, so one thing I've seen over the years is franchisors, I'll say, our professionals generally on the leadership team, they might have a little bit more business acumen and maybe be a little bit more sophisticated with being able to understand numbers. So I've seen them, here's 30 numbers to look at. And I know that that's not you, so that's why I'm exaggerating it. But, here's all the numbers, and the franchisee can get really overwhelmed and not use them. So how do you prevent scorecards or dashboards from becoming overwhelming instead of empowering?
It takes a lot of discipline. And
We
it takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
And I will be the first one to say this. I kind of make a joke internally. I don't have KPIs, key performance indicators. I just have I love the numbers. I'll go overanalyze them sometimes too.
Yeah.
So we kind of start with this analogy. If you're on a deserted island and you're running your business, what are 3 to 5 numbers that if you had those numbers, you would know how healthy your business is?
Yeah.
What are those 3 to 5 numbers? For some franchisees, and especially in the very beginning, those are the numbers. Mm-hmm. Then as that franchisee matures, or maybe they may be more numbers oriented, you can layer numbers below those top ones, but you start with the 3 to 5. Mm-hmm. And if those numbers are accurate and they're the right numbers, then they're going to tell you everything you need to know about that segment of your business. And if you want to go deeper, yeah, absolutely go deeper if you need to, but keep it simple, keep it high level, and then train to those numbers through your training process and franchise recruitment on why those numbers are important. And you have to kind of really look at it also from this perspective of what's motivating the franchisee around the number. So an example would be, we may see this number as not being good. And a great example would be discounting on your P&L statement. But a franchisee is really excited about that they're taking care of their customers. Mm-hmm. Well, if you keep it simple, now you can kind of get engaged into the conversation. But if you start getting into 7, 8, 9 numbers, the conversation's just not going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So, in a perfect world, I think we would always know, okay, are you saying, okay, well, sorry, let me say this differently. There's the 3 to 5. Do you custom orient those?
We will customize. We have numbers that we benchmark to across the entire system.
Right, that these are the benchmarks.
So we're going to look at those numbers for every location. And, mm-hmm. We're a doggy daycare and boarding concept. So Houndstown, so I can get my name out there.
Yeah, do it.
And so we're going to be looking at numbers of dogs. We're going to be looking at, similar things like how many leads did you get? How are you converting those leads? Mm-hmm. What's the lifetime value of those customers? Some of those really standard kind of numbers. Yeah. But then if a franchisee is really motivated by, let's say, we do a lot of adoptions through our franchise locations. And maybe a franchisee, hey, let's track that for you. We track it globally. We don't necessarily benchmark it. But for that franchisee, they may have a goal of, I want to get 5 dogs adopted every month. So we would add that to their individualized scorecard, and our team would work with that franchisee to look to drive that specific number for that franchisee.
Mm-hmm. And then also, new franchisees might have they're looking, maybe the benchmark is different, or maybe the actual thing that you're measuring is different, or maybe you find in one market, like for me, for example, as a franchisee, when I had 3 locations, Our average sale per customer varied quite a bit at our 3 locations. One of them, it was like, here's the range. One was about $22 per customer, and our top performing, or not that it was our top performing store, it just had a different demographic, was around $30 per customer. That's a big, when you look at percentage difference range. And so we couldn't, the company average was about $28 an hour or per customer. So, yes, we wanted to get that lower one up, but we're not going to use 28 as our goal because we're already at 30. So I'm assuming you do that kind of customization.
We would do the same type of customization. We don't want to get, again, there is a little bit of discipline, but not being so myopic about what it is. At the end of the day, what's the number that works for that location and that franchisee that helps drive their individual goal mirrored with the goals of the brand, whatever those may or may not be, and not letting it get down into a debate of the numbers. And sometimes, especially with a very new store, you may kind of drop, hey, you're still tracking it, but and again, in a generic example, if they're having high turnover, what's the one number that if you knock over and improve is going to knock over all these other dominoes?
Right.
Turnover can be a big one.
Yeah.
And that's always a challenge for any business owner. So we're really going to focus on one number with you for the next 6 months. And it's going to be your turnover ratio. Yeah. How do we help build culture? How do you lead differently? How do we look at these different things? Because now we get that kind of oriented. Now customer service improves. Now culture improves. Now converting customers improves. Like now we're knocking over a whole bunch of numbers by just focusing on one number.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So that makes me flash back to when I was a franchisee, and it's embarrassing, but I like to tell this, but I do use this in my keynote because I want franchisees to hear that I went through this too. There was a time where we were doing $1 million in revenue, and our margins were shrinking, and we're like, what do we do? We knew why. It was like we were selling a lot of things off our flyer, the discounted products. But at the end of the day, what we really needed to do was be ourselves, but also teaching and training our staff to do a better job of understanding like higher margin items that were good suggestions that go well with the products that they were buying, the customers. But before that, this is the story I tell is that our home office team, our support team was really trying to get us to pay attention to our metrics. And initially it was like, sales are up here. They're not going down. They're actually going up. We're good. Like sales are going up, money in the bank, classic. Now keep in mind, Rob, I was about 25. Okay. So don't hold that against me.
Everything you're saying, I would say it's happening at 90% of franchise locations.
Well,
I don't know an actual number, but what you're describing is incredibly common. Yeah. For sure.
Well, and so if you ask me why wasn't I bought in? Well, first of all, I was no problem paying payroll and all the bills. We were taking a salary at that time. It was fine. Busy as heck, like 3 stores in a year and a half we opened, and we had good sales at the time. Like, why would I track my metrics? I'm good. Like, I wasn't convinced. So then,
well, it's an important analogy. We do this in recruitment and through training. So like in this example you're mentioning, and I don't know the details, but it sounds like you had a relatively healthy business.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
Yeah, which is different from maybe a situation where the business is not healthy.
Right.
The analogy I use, it's like, hey, I have a trainer, and I'm like, I'm pretty healthy. I feel good. And he's like, no, you need to come to the gym one more time a week, and you need to eat this way so you can be healthier. But I'm not motivated to be healthier. I feel pretty good. I don't want to go to the gym an extra day a week. So now there's a disconnect on what's the driving motivation behind the franchisor and the franchisee. Because, the franchisor wants you to drive more revenue. There's royalties coming in from that. They want you to drive more profitability because that can go into an item 19 and that makes the brand look healthier. But that franchisee is like, hey,
I'm good.
I'm pretty good. So the disconnect now is not necessarily on the dashboard or the numbers. Mm-hmm. It's how do we interact and how do we find a common ground with the franchisee on the different drivers behind mm-hmm. the conversation and kind of moving it in that direction. And what I'll kind of sometimes speak to, and again, I like to use health as the parameter behind it, is you can think you're healthy, but the things that maybe you're doing in a year or 18 months could make you really sick. That could be a competitor moving into your market. Mm-hmm. That could be a macroeconomic thing that starts happening. Mm. But because you weren't as healthy as you could be, you're now susceptible to something in the future that could really hurt you. Mm-hmm. Now let's start kind of maybe getting into the conversation, because part of being as healthy as you can in business is about creating a Teflon mm-hmm. to protect yourself as much as possible against things out of your control that can happen.
Yeah. When I think about what would have motivated me in that moment, that I like that analogy. That's really good. And they probably tried saying that to me, by the way, Rob. And I probably still didn't listen. But when but you're bang on. And what would have probably, if they would have been able to show me that here's what's probably going to happen. You know, you're going to, you know, like like what you said, competition could come in. Like what could affect my current really good state I was in. And then show me like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to need this contingency money over here that you could be now saving for that situation, so that when that happens, you don't have to change any salary. Like you don't have to do anything different.
Perfect example. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what instead happened is, and I, again, in my keynote, I talk about the ups and downs of business, and like, you know, when I started paying attention when we were down here and we couldn't make payroll, and I was like, what are those KIP things you were talking about?
Yeah.
KIP, you know.
And that's why it's so powerful when you can, I'm going a little bit in the weeds, when you can find leading indicators that you're working with. So a lot of KPIs are sometimes lagging indicators. Yep. Yeah, but when you can start looking at that leading indicator, and I'm going really deep here, and this isn't on this isn't on our scorecard to franchisees, but we look at something called rate of change. Mm-hmm. And without getting into the epic details of it, because I will lose everybody's interest, but it's really kind of measuring the rate of change on your 3-month rolling change and your 12-month change. So how are you comping to 12 months ago, and how are you comping to 3 months ago, and how is that? And what you can really see with that number is I may show that I'm positive year over year, but I'm starting to go negative how I'm comping more recently. That's a very strong leading indicator that something is up, and we would kind of use that to kind of paint the same picture that you started to look at. So
catching it much earlier,
yeah, and we don't necessarily would use that, and I don't mean to go too far off on the tangent with a franchisee, because it's an involved metric, but it's one that I have found to be very powerful internally to track at the unit level, because it really shows you. I can't tell you how many times myself, my field team, anybody else are like, oh, well, year over year, they're up 10%. But last month they were only up 6%. And then it goes to 4 and 2. And then all of a sudden it's negative. Then the warning bells go off because it went negative year over year. But you weren't tracking that it was trending that way for the preceding 6 months.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. If anybody, if you're listening to this and you don't understand, like, go back and listen again, because that was golden. If you can, if you can predict these things before they happen. But then also, okay, now let's switch over to this side of things is, again, getting franchisees to understand. Well, we are talking about that already here, but getting them to really understand why this matters. You know, I'm pretty sure that you're not the one doing all these calls with franchisees, because that wouldn't be very scalable, right? Like
it's not, right. No. Yeah. And that's my phrase, and I think it's important to understand, is it's easy to sit here and talk about theory,
Yeah.
which is ultimately what we're talking about. How do you translate all this down to the people who are doing the work on a daily basis? And just really through luck, in a way, I came up as a field rep. So I uniquely understand the challenges, and I'm passionate about that. So yes, and I can kind of see where you're going here. How do you support the people who are doing this work with this? It sounds great for me to say it from my ivory tower.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
But yeah, how do you get there? And so what we do is really lean into that professional development and we've worked with AC Inc. with our field reps. I can't say enough good things about the work you guys do at AC Inc. to layer in the theory into the tools that you need. What we do here at Houndstown is we have a monthly call. We tier every franchisee. So we're not reviewing every franchise location every month. I just found as a field rep, like change takes time. So we review them more on a rolling 3-month. So if a store opened in February, in March, we're going to have a little bit of an update about how the opening went, but we're not going to review the performance and the numbers of that location probably until June. And then we're going to use that as an individualized kind of coaching opportunity to kind of talk through what may be happening there. We use something that's called tactical empathy. Whereas how are you empathetic with the franchisee, but be tactical about it? So you can empathize with the franchisee, and that's an important component, but you got to move that empathy tactically into an action and a change of behavior. Maybe that's a change of behavior on our end. Maybe it's a change of behavior on the franchisee end. But I find being able to use those kind of case studies on that monthly phone call really helps the field reps go, oh, okay, here's what I need to do here. There's that art form to the science behind it.
Yeah, so good. One thing I want to point out just for people that are listening, we see franchisors trying to figure out why can't my field team, FBCs, whoever's supporting franchisees, get the franchisees to care about their numbers. And maybe we need to put in somebody with a lot of financial acumen, a financial wizard. And it's like you could have somebody that knows everything about metrics and numbers and all that, but if they can't communicate it, they don't have the tactical empathy, which I've heard you talk about that before, and it's so in line with, of course, what we teach at AC Inc. It's like, how do we drive behavior while creating trust and motivation and accountability? This isn't about dropping a hammer and compliance or anything like that. It's how do we drive that? So that's what you're talking about there. So your coaches are, just to clarify, your coaches are having these conversations and able to help the franchisee see this and then drive the action. You're confident about that?
Well, we can always be better. And I always really try to make an emphasis here that, yes, I am saying all these things, and absolutely we are focused this way, but we absolutely could always be better at it. I think anytime a brand says we're perfect at that, you got a problem. So no, we're always looking to grow and kind of improve anything within the business, but absolutely within how do we support our franchisees? It could be site visits. It could be on the financial side. It could be on the marketing side. For the field rep, they are in so many ways that jack of all trades. And so how do we kind of be able to provide that kind of deeper education on any of those things? What we'll do is if there is something on a data side that's going really deep, we will tag somebody within our finance department to get on that phone call with that franchisee.
Yeah, perfect.
Same way we would with a marketing thing. Our field reps are kind of coaching them
on the team for that.
We're going to kind of bring in this person to kind of talk about this thing. And we find that really helps. And it helps keep the other departments also kind of ticked and tied into what's happening at the unit level, whatever it may or may not be. So our field reps are really kind of coaching on specific numbers and how do you drive those numbers. And so, again, kind of generic. A big driver for us is labor.
Yeah.
And so, hey, this number is higher in your cohort. Let's take a look at how you're scheduling. Let's take a look at your turnover. What's going on here? But if we needed to get into a conversation with a franchisee that's kind of really getting into their loan and getting financing of a second location or something along those lines, we're going to tag somebody else around those things.
Equity in the business, or they're bringing a partner, or things
all
like that.
Those type of things is going to be a different kind of layer conversation. Our reps are really kind of driving on the P&L side of things.
Yeah.
We don't heavily get into statement of cash flows or balance sheets. We would do that more quarterly or depending on the stage and how old the store is, with somebody from the finance team.
I love that you just brought that up. That's something, that's exactly what we encourage people to do is your field team members do not have to be like accredited with their accounting designation. They need to have be resourceful enough, the ability to help get the franchisees to care about these important numbers, benchmarks, all that, but then bring in the right people, just like marketing, like you said. So true.
And a lot of the work they're doing sometimes is it's like, hey, your month, we got the statement, but the month wasn't closed out. Hey, we got to get this month closed out. Hey, it looks like you're putting all of your personal Amazon expenses on your P&L statement in this category. We want to move that below the line.
Right.
So that's a lot of the work that they'll be doing. But we really we do everything we can to empower them to use all these things that we're talking about as the guardrails, but not at the end of the day, what do you need to do to make a connection with that franchisee? Go do that. And the story I use with the team, similar to your previous story, is I had a franchisee who hated the average check metric.
Right.
Hated it. He was like, I don't believe in it. And I'm like, well, it's not a religion. It's literally like your revenue divided by your, it's really just a division equation.
Yeah.
And that example, with that brand, system average was like $38 and his was $24. And, we're trying to work with him. I said, man, if you even get it up to 30, this is what's going to happen on your sale.
The bottom line, what happens?
Look at all this. No, doesn't want to do it. And it was a little bit of a light bulb moment where I just kind of said, hey, what's the number you want to drive? Not what I'm trying to make you drive. And he's like, let me think about that. And he came back and he said, I want to drive basket size, which is the exact same thing as average check. Just call it something different. I didn't say that. I said, absolutely. Let's drive basket size.
Instead of average check. That got him excited
because, he got it behind it with his team. And it was just like how we want to just measure how many things are in each. It wasn't the dollar amount. It was the number of items per transaction, essentially. Same thing. It's the same number. But he really got behind it.
Yeah.
And so I want my field reps that's not an anomaly story. Yeah. That happens a lot. So, hey, what is the number? You got to have something that you can measure, but what's the thing that gets that franchisee excited? And if you're going back to health and working out, for a certain franchisee, maybe it's how many times I go to the gym. Maybe it's how many reps I do. Maybe it's this. Ultimately, whatever it is, and I think this is the thesis for anything that's data related, is tying it to the individual why statement for that franchisee.
Yeah.
So like I'm thinking about this health stuff. My 30-year high school reunion is coming up this summer. That would be my why statement.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to be in front of
I remember the girlfriend that broke up with me in high school.
Yeah. You would be like, see how I turned out?
I think she's going. And so I got to make sure, right?
Maybe she's listening right now, Rob.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
But if she is,
hi.
Hello, Sarah.
I'm just going to say Sarah. Is that really her name? Oh my gosh.
No, that's not her name.
We're just using that name. I was just going to make the name up. Anyway, okay.
It's a common name.
Yeah.
So
But you
we'll
have
tie that into those why statements for that franchisee,
And
whatever that is.
that's
So
exactly what I would have needed because things were fine, I thought, but if they would have helped me see that this is, but well, even if they would have helped me, do you want to buy a second property, like a second, like a vacation home? Do you want to, you know, that's what would have needed to happen. So,
yeah,
oh my gosh.
that's so every why, we record the why statements, we track that so that we can come back to it periodically if we ever need to kind of say, hey,
Is it still this too?
is it still, yeah, great point. Yeah.
It could change, and then it's not going to work.
And how are we looking to do this? And if you kind of put these things in all together, you tie in the psychology, you tie in the why statement, you tie in training and recruiting to these things, you're going to really affect a lot of change from a scorecard dashboard perspective. There's always going to be a time, no matter how well you do all this, where that number, you're just not going to get it. Mm-hmm. Then, we're going to pivot. We're going to look at a different number. We're going to try to do something different. We're going to try something else. You're always, at some point you will land on what the thing is. It may just take a little bit longer to get there. Mm-hmm. But if you kind of layer all these things in, I find that most franchisees will get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think you said something earlier that made me think, even if you could just get a franchisee to track even the concept of tracking numbers before, like even if they're not tracking the perfect number, like at least getting them in that routine. It's just like going to the gym. Maybe you're not, doing the perfect exercise, or you're not, stretching. I mean, it's not ideal, but at least you're going, right? So I think that's a message I'm hearing as well. So
yeah, so like I'm just kind of sticking with the analogy, and I don't know if somebody who's listening to this has probably had to or wanted to track calories. Where you're literally,
I get my Apple Watch with my closing my rings. That works for me. So that's doing that.
And that's a perfect example.
It works. I want to close my rings every day.
You want to close the rings.
Jumping jacks beside my bed.
Somebody could get really behind weighing all their food to track their calories. Yeah. Other people is like, that's a big pain. I don't want to do it. Okay, track this. It may not be the perfect number. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah.
Can you get as close as you can to whatever it is to drive the change? Yeah. So if it's closing a ring, number of times going to the gym, reps, weight, tracking calories, whatever it is, if you're driving towards health, it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah. And if there's no results, then that's where it could be a problem, because if you're tracking if they're tracking something that doesn't make a difference and they're not getting results, it's going to be even worse. So it's like, let's at least make sure that what they're tracking matters to some extent, right? So
yeah, and that's probably a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But that kind of, from my perspective, leads into, okay, what's the documentation we may need to put in place here to really ensure that we're creating clarity of communication and what's happening here. Yeah. Sometimes it could be, hey, well, let's track that. Hey, it didn't work. We're losing time. Let's move over here, but let's make sure we're kind of documenting those conversations, because now you can come back to, not remotely in a condescending way, but hey, let's kind of revisit this. And now you're getting into different personality types. We use DISC on how we communicate with franchisees. So a high D is going to be very different than a high C, which is a high C is probably looking at too much data and getting paralysis by analysis. Yeah. So you have to really lean into the individuality of this thing we call franchising to really find it.
Because when you've met one franchisee,
you've met one franchisee.
Exactly. Okay,
I got to trademark that.
I know, just like me with the fransplaining, right? Okay, so we need to wrap up. I know you and I could probably, do 4 more hours of this, but let's, last thing we'll do then is the Go Be Awesome Challenge. So we're all about people being able to take action from these podcasts, from everything we do, roundtables, all of that. We want people to feel ready to go take action. So what's something a franchisor or field person or whoever's listening right now, say on a franchisor team, could do to improve their success with scorecards that they could go do right away?
I think one of the most powerful things you can do with the scorecard to go be awesome is go to your franchisees and say, how helpful is this scorecard?
Yeah.
Whether that's at the global brand level or at the individual level. We put in these numbers, and these are the numbers we're tracking. I'm not saying get rid of that, but get feedback from your franchisees.
Yes.
Are there maybe some other numbers that maybe are more pertinent today? Maybe you created that scorecard 3 years ago. Really kind of lean into kind of asking your franchisees what they think about it.
And why are they
and
not
why.
doing it,
Yeah,
right? I
and
had
why.
to add that. Like, it's so interesting to me how many times when you say that to someone, they're like, oh my gosh, you're right, we never thought of that. Like, just ask them, why are you not?
Yeah.
Well, and then because you can't, if you can name it, you can tame it. If you don't know what you're trying to fix, then you might.
You don't know. So
Yeah.
moving it all into that direction, I think that's something you can do to go be awesome.
Yes.
And of course, because I love you and I love AC Inc., go by the AC Inc. Booth at IFA if you happen to be going to IFA.
Well, this is gonna
you guys do great
come
things.
out after the IFA. So how about they go on our website? How about they go to our website?
Go to the AC Inc. website. That makes a lot more sense.
Now everybody knows
Yes.
when we recorded it, but that's fun. The little Easter
I
egg
should have
there.
connected the doc because I listen to podcasts all the time, and it's February, and it's like, wait, they're talking about things that happened in November last year.
It's okay. We're
So-
pretty casual around here, but yeah, we would love if anybody's hearing that. Thank you for saying that, Rob. And I will say, yeah, if anybody's hearing this, this is what we love to help people with: is how can we help our people in the field, even if it's business coaching on Zoom, however you call it, area developer or area managers, FBCs. How can we help them actually make change happen with franchisees so that everybody wins? So do reach out. I'm going to say thank you first though to you, Rob. Before I make
Always. I
Thank
love
you
being
so
on
much.
here.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be another time. I'll be like, hey, Rob, you want to do this again?
I would be more than happy to.
Hopefully, I'll have the tech figured out by then. But yeah, so thank you so much, Rob. And until next time, everyone, go be awesome.